compare it. But it's interesting to know that we're at a time in our life with this really weird duality shift. The last time Neptune was in Pisces, which Neptune takes 165 years to come around the sun. So guess when the last time Neptune was in this same spot? Was in 1848 through 1864, which was the buildup of the Civil War, the gold rush. It was also the time that spirituality and circuses and psychics and all this stuff started to really come up to the surface. You go back to the last time Neptune was in Pisces, it was actually during the witch hunt trials. How ironic we're having a witch hunt again right now with, oh, the Republicans are the witch hunt, or no, the Democrats are the witch hunt. There's this like parallel that happens in astrology that's all coming. But what Neptune and Pisces does is segregate us in order for us to be aware. Without consciousness or without unconsciousness, you wouldn't have consciousness. So there's this split of who's conscious and who's unconscious. And if you're conscious and you're unconscious, you're wrong and I'm right and all this crazy stuff. And that's what's making this dangerous right now is, number one, the duality is so extreme. So whether you look at ISIS as just a war or ISIS as the battle of the goddess, which it's like, do you look at it both ways? Which way do you? People are being in spiritual crisis because they feel like if they pick a side, they're screwed. Right? You pick one side, oh my gosh, oh yeah, I feel that way. Oh, but then there's some things over here that are showing people are in a spiritual crisis just like people were during the Civil War times, and it did lead to the very end of Neptune's transit in Pisces, where finally people made a big major decision, and then we went through a huge war. I mean, it was like a very intense time. People have to be careful because we don't know exactly what they are. There's still a lot of cloaking where you're going to have to kind of do your own research, and you're going to have to look deep inside of your soul and not totally react or make certain that you know all the information right now in life. Because the second you do that is the second that you have convictioned, believed your life into a place. And that's the problem that we're seeing in politics right now. That's the problem we're seeing in all these things. There's a lot of truth, though, to these slides. The Fukushima aspect, when Uranus came into Aries the exact day in April 2011, boom, the earthquake happened the exact day that it happened. There's this aspect where there's so much information that we don't know. It's freaking people out. Fear is just the unknown. That's all that it really is. And based off what it's showing astrologically and what's happening is, there's a lot to unveil. The Great Oz has a pretty good screen up, but behind it, there's a lot of projections going on that's going to take us a while to figure out. And while we go through this, I think a lot of it is learning to find compassion for others that might not see what things your way and actually be open to whatever their way is, especially Trump being the center of the focus of all of this. There's great sides of it and there's horrible sides of it, but there is not a bad side only, and there is not a good side only. There's this part where our souls are having to learn to show the unconscious parts of self stuff and the conscious parts. We could lose ourselves and show, okay, Fukushima did some bad things, but there's also the fact that the people are living back in Fukushima and they're fine. So, there's a part to where it's like, we can't lose ourselves so much down our own rabbit holes right now that we become psychologically insane. That's the most scariest part of this, is when you decide to go down the rabbit hole, which we all entered in 2011, and then 2012 was like the officiant, bam, you're in the rabbit hole, okay? It's like you have to also, as at yourself, keep some sort of reality base. What the issue of the last 18 months was what's reality and what's not. Lots of people, the highest heroin drug addiction aspect, people are deciding to go, I don't want to deal with reality. I want to go and just peace out. The spiritual community getting lost into where it's like some of the stuff is like a little overblown. It's like, come on, man. Like there is a reality too. And we'll discuss later when I go into the astrology and showing that. But I wanted to show with all these slides, there's so much to where there's so much cloaking. It's very hard to distinguish what's right, what's wrong, what's real. And there's a lot of it to where you have to really do a lot of research. You have to also never have made a convictional belief behind it where you're 100% certain. Because unfortunately, we're at a time where It's too mixed bag. There's too many, you know, the winds could change at any second. You think you're going to Catalina, and the next thing you're going to Mexico, or it's going, the winds are going to take us up north to Seattle, and I didn't bring any jackets, you know? So there's that part where we have to be careful when we enter into this information of looking at it, and also at the same time maintaining some sort of physical reality grounding without losing our spiritual consciousness into a tailspin where we actually believe our own bullshit. Because there's a lot of that happening in the spiritual community. And the astrology has the North Node in Virgo right now, which, what does Virgos do? They clean, they're real, right? Like, why do you think the eclipses were in Virgo and Pisces over the last years? We can't lose ourselves in psychotic, even spiritual stuff. Or then what I did this whole movie called The Age of Deception. Is there's deception going on, but the biggest deception is the spiritual community creating a religion that is just as convictional as the one that they want to leave.
Ironic. Yeah.
So that's what I just had to say about that, to open up. Because as we open these doors, where's your anchor to ground in reality still? And still pop out, because consciousness is not just I'm aware. There's a lot of unconsciousness that is dealt with consciousness. There's just as much flip-flop. You know, it's like, I've got to be able to see the other side. Or sometimes it's like, you know, when you're in a relationship, it's kind of like, okay, I need to get out of this for just a second and like let me get back to my life for a second, see how this is going before you lose. You know, when you get in a relationship, right? It's like, yeah. And then you get that one moment you see, oh, well, I forgot I had this and I forgot I had that. It's good to have that separation aspect. Same thing with all this spiritual information. It's like, you've got to also kind of back away from it and kind of go, all right, okay.
How do I really feel about this?
Yeah. So that's based off the astrology and where we're going spiritually and what you're seeing on the news and what you're seeing and what Neptune rules is the media is pushing their own belief conviction. So Fox is pushing that Trump's the master of all gods. He's awesome. CNN's pushing that he's the worst guy in the world with the worst ratings. So you've got this polarization that's happening and both sides are cloaking. Where is that divine higher rise above that and see there's other aspects to unveil, which I think is the main thing here is nobody's paying attention to Fukushima. Why are we paying attention that if Trump talked to Russia when we should be paying attention to what the hell happened with Fukushima and nobody's cleaning it up or talking about it and what happened to that in the news cycle? It's that energy that starts tripping you out. Or why, when you go to Barnes & Noble now, when you look at all the books, there's no history books. The only history books are like, okay, like Lincoln or, you know, whatever. But, you know, you want to get into ancient history, I dare you to go find it. Even when you ask the person at Barnes & Noble, they go, I have no idea where that is, actually. Hold on one second. Mm-hmm. Autobiographies, cookbooks, There is no world history, Roman history, ancient history is being erased from our consciousness. Television, History Channel, A&E, nobody shows it anymore. That's the cloaking, is the conditioning that is happening in our consciousness now, and whether or not you're going to be aware of that conditioning or not.